Donald Trump says that any Jewish American who votes for Democrats hates their religion and hates Israel. Okay. The 2024 Republican nominee made those comments yesterday during a podcast interview. Take a listen.
Why do the Democrats hate Bibi Netanyahu?
I actually think they hate Israel.
Yes.
I don't think they hate him. I think they hate Israel. When you see those Palestinian marches, even I'm amazed at how many people are in those marches. And guys like Schumer see that, and to him it's votes. I think it's votes more than anything else, because he was always pro-Israel. He's very anti-Israel now. Any Jewish person that votes for Democrats hates their religion, they hate everything about Israel, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
Gosh, speaking of being ashamed of themselves, my God, here's a guy that runs around and trashes the United States of America every day because he's not president. He trashes the United States of America before he is president, despite the fact that before and after the United States, as I say all the time, strongest economy in the world, easily, strongest military in the world, easily, the most soft power in the world, easily, the greatest institutions of higher learning, easily, the greatest medical doctors and healthcare professionals in the world, easily. You could go down the list. And yet, Gene Robinson, everything is personalized to Donald Trump. That's what happens in a cult. If he's not president of the United States and he says, America is horrible, America is awful, America is a joke, he says it. If you are a Jew and you don't support him, then you hate your religion and you're a bad Jew. Again, this is something, Ed Luz was talking about it yesterday when we were talking about his column. This is something that if any other politician had said before, or if they say after, they would be drummed out of politics. But not Donald Trump. His people, his cult just grows stronger.
Yeah, they just, but the thing is, they sort of take it on board, too. It becomes part of the MAGA creed, which is just, it's a tragic thing, really, for what used to be the Republican Party, and just for American decency. My goodness, to say that Chuck Schumer, who has been one of the most pro-Israel officials, politicians in the country for eons, and who is the highest ranking Jewish official in the country, and to say that he hates Israel and that he is that anything he says about Israel is angling for anti-Israel votes is just obscene. It really is. But of course, you know, we're used to obscene from Donald Trump. And so we'll talk about this now, and then probably by the end of the show, there will be 3 or 4 more obscene things that he says that would have gotten anybody drummed out of politics 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and that we'll talk about until the next thing. It's that, you know, he goes 90 miles an hour down this road, and it is hard for us and for voters and for the country to keep up and to really process these horrible things that he's saying.
Right. Well, and everybody's numb to it. I mean, again, this is something.
That's the challenge.
This is something that, you know, he said before. But if anybody else had said it, again, they would be drummed out of politics. And we said at the beginning of this year, we're not going to grow numb to it. We're going to keep bringing this up. People can go, well, why are you talking about it? Because this is anti-Semitic garbage. That's why we're bringing it up. To tell somebody that they hate their entire religion unless you support their politics or their political party.
It's not a joke.
It's the same thing that freaks have been saying in the evangelical church over the past 6, 7, 8 years. A lot of real just freaks and people who really don't understand the Bible at all. Obviously, politics means more to them than their faith. Where the argument is, if you're not for Donald Trump, you're not a Christian. You're not. And it is. I've talked about it before in very personal terms. My mom's funeral, and Tim Alberta told a similar story. I mean, these people are not well. They are in a political cult, and that's
Very
why
vulnerable.
Donald Trump can say this, get away with it, and why we bring it up, because you can be numb to it if you want. We're not, and America should not. They should understand, even if he does this every day, that this is just foul.
You said even if he does it every day, it's not the first time Trump has expressed similar beliefs. In September, he posted on social media on Rosh Hashanah that liberal Jews were voting to, quote, destroy America and Israel. As president, he also said that American Jews were showing, quote, great disloyalty to Israel by voting for Democrats. And in a statement yesterday, Trump's 2024 campaign manager called the Democratic Party, quote, a full-blown anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, pro-terrorist cabal.
Richard Haas, again, the disinformation spews so easily from their lips and their pens and their word processors. It's almost like, it's almost like Orwell said, fascists are much better with propaganda.
Because it's easier.
And they just throw things against the wall. And the Trump camp has said in the past, that Steve Bannon has said, they're going to throw so much stuff at the wall that they're going to numb America. That's what they do every day.
Joe, it's hard for me to listen to this conversation. It's just so offensive for someone to tell me what it means to be a good Jew. It is just, it's so beyond the pale. Let me just say that, but let's put that aside for a second, if possible. I think there's an interesting kernel in this, which is, what does it mean to be pro-Israel? And this association of pro-Israel with Bibi Netanyahu or current Israeli government policy, that's not what it means to be pro-Israel. Governments have been known for time immemorial to do things that are often against their own country's self-interest. We have done things in the United States. People opposed the Iraq War or Vietnam, you name it. It doesn't mean you're anti-American. It just means you have questions about the wisdom of the policy, whether it's in our own self-interest. So what Chuck Schumer did the other day, what I tried to do the other day in the Wall Street Journal, to be critical of Israel, it means to be critical of Israeli policy. I actually think that's pro-Israel. I actually think in the long run, that is something that's good for Israel. You need to have people pushing back, questioning. The government of Israel is not perfect. Bibi Netanyahu, God knows, is not perfect. So this whole idea, if you're critical of Israeli policy, you're somehow anti-Semitic or anti-Zionist or anti-Israeli, that's just nonsense. And we've just got to be straight up about it and not give the Trumps or anybody else ownership of that argument. Indeed, I actually think what Bibi Netanyahu is doing, what this Israeli government is doing, and we've talked about it on this show, is bad for Israel and it's bad for the U.S.-Israeli relationship. And people who care about Israel, I actually think we have the obligation to call them out on it.
Yeah, and that's what we've talked about before. Jonathan Lemire, you look, I often quote the Wall Street Journal editorial page positively, but you look at this headline, Democrats turn against Israel, and you read the body of it, and again, it's a very dumbed down, simplified approach. There are those of us who have supported Israel for our entire lives, I would say adult lives, but this goes all the way back to me being a young kid and being in church. We always have supported Israel, but the suggestion that you have to support Bibi Netanyahu, you have to support policies that deliberately undermine the possibility of there ever being peace in between Israel and the Palestinians, the idea that you have to support total war at a dense space where we understand, I guess. Maybe the Wall Street Journal editorial page doesn't understand it in this case. I guess other people don't understand it. But there is a cost, and it has nothing to do with Michigan, or I think they brought up Nevada. It has nothing to do with what happens in 2024. It has a lot to do with what happens in 2029, 2034, 2044, Israel's future. And this lie, and I said this yesterday, you just have to put it out there again. This lie that if somehow Israel doesn't do a carpet bombing of Rafah, that Hamas will spring back to power. I spent this weekend talking to people across the Middle East, to foreign policy experts, and I had one question. The question was the same. Is Hamas ever going to be in charge of Gaza again? Everybody said, no, that's over. Their best hope, their only hope, is escaping the tunnels and getting the hell out of Dodge. They will never, ever regain power in Gaza. And this argument somehow that they are is ridiculous. You have a lot of Arab countries that want to come in and help the United States and help them rebuild. Now, unlike Bibi Netanyahu, they have always seen Hamas as bad actors. They have always, unlike Bibi Netanyahu, they would not have turned a blind eye in 2018 to Hamas's funding or sent his Mossad chief to Doha, as he did a couple of weeks before, with the instructions for Qatar to continue funding the Hamas terrorist group. That's what he did. That's what he's done. And they're defending Bibi Netanyahu and saying that Chuck Schumer is somehow not strong enough in his pro-Israeli positions. I mean, we could go down the list of what Bibi Netanyahu has done to make Israel weaker, to make them open to that attack. But again, the focus now is on a Senate majority leader instead of the prime minister who allowed all this to happen.
Right. Hamas may not rule Gaza again, but if there is that carpet bombing campaign, it's going to radicalize more people who live in Gaza, making life that much more dangerous for Israel and the West. And certainly no government is infallible. It's a sign of patriotism at times when you criticize your own government, even as you love that country. And people who do love Israel, whether they live in Israel or live abroad, do have the right to say, look, I love this nation, I love Israel, but I disagree with this particular government, this particular prime minister. And you know who is doing that? President Joe Biden, who is a significant Zionist, who has been pro-Israel for his entire political career, who comes of an age where U.S. support for Israel was completely reflexive. He still feels that way. But he also now believes that Netanyahu is self-interested, is trying to prolong the war to remain in power, and is conducting it the wrong way. And that's why we've seen this break. That doesn't mean the president doesn't support Israel. He does. But it's about Netanyahu.
It is Tuesday, the 19th of March of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, a small scant dash. A mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. It always has, and it always will. Okay. Well, the taglines haven't changed, but the software has, and we're, even though it's the same WavePad Masters Edition, this one is for the Mac. The previous one that we had here at Netroots Radio for, well, over a dozen years was on a PC. Slightly different. So a little bit of a learning curve, as I mentioned yesterday, with the interface, and but it works pretty good. I'm kind of liking it. Just still, I suppose, navigating my way around, and we'll have it. The muscle memory will be changing. We have to change the muscle memory. Mm-hmm. You can't teach an old dog new tricks? Well, I bet they can, because they are at this very moment. Oh my. Okay, so how's your Tuesday going? Another primary Tuesday today in quite a few places across the country. And we'll keep track of that here on Netroots Radio. And when I say that we will, I mean that, Tom Hartman, Randy, a few others will be mentioning it at some point today. So there. Okay. Well, what else is happening in the world and even in the local area of where the mothership of Netroots Radio resides? Quite a few angry conservatives who want to put their anger on you and say that you're the real angry one. Oh, really? Okay, well, we're not the ones that stormed the Capitol when we didn't get our way. Except if you hear it from them, it was actually Antifa. Oh, really? You're going to try that again, huh? All right. Well, apparently Democrats have a long history of rounding people up, according to MAGA, anti-public education, anti-tax, anti-vax, anti-American MAGA here. Except to hear it from them, they are the only patriots in this whole country. Oh, really? I think a patriot actually can embrace a lot of people, and if you're so singular, I think that maybe the label of patriotic American wouldn't apply. But hey, that's just me. Or is it? Anyway, in the midst of another veiled threat against public education, there is a health initiative that's going on in the state of Oregon, and what they are doing is that since conservatives and other anti-tax people have gotten rid of the school nurse. Yeah, the school nurse. Wonder why they did that right in the midst of a measles outbreaks. And others, mumps too. Anyway, so very few schools have school nurses anymore. And for a kid to, get a Band-Aid put on their knee when they've skinned their knee, they got to be taken out of class. They got to get the parent out of work. The parents got to come get them, pick them up, take them to the doctor, sit around to the doctor, etc., etc., etc. And the kid suffers by not being in class. So, since the conservatives have pushed for more privatization, well, some people have taken them up on it. And one of those is a group called La Clinica. Or is it La Clinica? I think by dint of the fact it has a sort of like a Spanish flavor to their name, that's really what riles up the MAGA reptilian brain. Did you say something other than English? Is there some Hispanic involved in this? Because I think that's really what triggers, the hypothalamus in these. Do they even have one? I don't know. It's reptilian nonetheless. Anyway, that's not to say that they're not our neighbors. Okay, there's lots of aliens and lizards from outer space that are our neighbors. There's no other explanation for their behavior, but that's another story for another time, isn't it? Yeah. In fact, I think many science fiction writers have already written about it, so we don't need to go into it, do we? Anyway, so La Clinica has partnered with quite a few schools in the state, and what they do is that they have been setting up mobile labs where they would come at certain times during the week, and they'd have an on-site clinic with doctors and nurses, and what they would do is physicals, sports exams, for, because football and soccer, those are all quite important endeavors. So what? It is Tuesday, the 19th of March of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook. By funding, I mean by grants. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner,
they
the English
will,
bulldog, is our
in some
snoozing
cases,
sous
charge
chef. Precious, the
insurance.
little Yorkie,
Now,
is our door girl.
remember,
and
it was
she
the
will be
conservatives
seating
that
you
wanted
directly
this.
for our
They didn't want to have to
especially
pay
special
taxes.
daily
for these
special
damn school nurses. That are just
Tarrytown
a
Chowder
waste. It's
Tuesdays.
socialism.
A small scant dash.
So,
a mere pinch
they
of
got some
hot smoked
privatization, and
Hungarian
they
paprika
don't
will
like
make
it.
all the difference in the world.
And why?
It always
Because
has. Obviously,
and
it's a
it
front to
always
come to
will.
our schools.
Okay.
And
Well, the
without
taglines
parents'
haven't
consent,
changed,
but
change their
the
kids'
software
gender
has, and
behind
we're
parents' backs.
even though it's
Hand
the same
out
prescription
wave
drugs willy nilly to
Masters
change their
edition. This
genders
one is for the
to
Mac.
give them to
The
previous
birth
control
control
that we
and-
had here at
and,
News Radio for
they're gonna
well,
perform
over a
abortions
dozen
on
years
school
was on a
campuses.
PC. Slightly different, so
In
a
our
little bit
school
of a
district
learning
here.
curve, as I mentioned yesterday.
They're going to build
with
a
the
clinic.
interface,
When I say build a
and,
clinic, the
but it
structure
works
is
pretty good.
already
I'm
there.
kind of liking it.
They're going to set up
just
a clinic.
Still, I suppose, navigating my
And,
way around.
It will
And
service.
we'll have it the muscle memory,
including
we'll
the private
we'll be
religious
changing. We'll have to
academies
change
and the
muscle memory.
homeschoolers. Yada yada yada.
You can't teach an
That's
old
just
dog new tricks.
too
Well,
much.
I bet they can
For the
because
MAGA
they are.
mind who
at
wants
this
to get rid
very
of
moment.
everything that is American.
Okay, so how's your Tuesday going?
It's just
another
too much.
primary Tuesday today, and quite a
So
few
in the
places
midst
across the country.
of another
We'll keep
attempt
track
on
of
my
that.
part. I don't have to
here on
attempt
News
very hard
Radio.
anymore.
And when I
There's
say
a lot
that
of
we
people
will,
want
I mean that
these
you know,
people's
Tom
game.
Hartman,
But the
Randy,
usual
a
suspects,
few others
and I'll
will
just
be
name them. Marvin
mentioning
Parker
it,
is no secret.
at some point today. So
Has
there,
posted
this
Okay.
what he calls as a
Well,
boondoggle.
what else
that
is happening
really,
in the world,
in disguise,
and even
to
in the
indoctrinate
local
our
areas
kids
into
where the
socialism,
mothership
yada,
of
yada,
News
yada.
Radio resides. So I just
Gave a
quite a
rundown
few
of what La Clinica does.
angry conservatives
in the
who
MAGA
want
mind,
to,
anything
put
that is the
their
truth
anger
is
on you and say
suspect.
that you're the
If it
real
doesn't come
angry
or
one.
get filtered through the proper
really?
channels.
Okay, well, we're not the ones that stormed the Capitol when we didn't get
in
our
the
way.
midst of this discussion,
Except if you hear it
had to
from
put
them,
up
it
with
was
not
actually
only
Antifa. Oh, really? You're going to
Civil
try that
War
again, huh?
revisionism about how
Right. Well,
the
apparently,
Civil War wasn't about
Democrats
slavery,
have
world,
a
so-
long history of
but
rounding
also
people
essentially
up,
Holocaust denying.
according to MAGA, anti-public education, anti-tax, and simply by acknowledging
Anti-American
the fact
MAGA,
that the Nazis,
Except you hear it
Hitler
from
and
them.
Himmler and
They're
others
the
took
only
inspiration
patriots in this
by
whole
our
country.
United States
patriot actually
reaction
embrace
to
a lot of people. And if you're so
Reconstruction. When I say
singular,
the
I
United
think that
States,
maybe
I mean
the
the
KKK
label of patriotic
and the Southerners who
American
couldn't take
apply.
no
But hey,
for
that's
an
just me.
answer. Or is it?
Anyway,
So apparently,
in the
because
midst of another
we acknowledge the fact
veiled
that Hitler
threat
and Himmler
against
and others
public
wrote
education,
extensively about it,
they took
there
some
is
inspiration from the fact that
look
health
at what these guys
initiative
did.
that's going on in the state of Oregon, and what they're doing
Just
is that
by
since,
acknowledging that fact,
conservatives
in the
and
MAGA
other
Brazilian
anti-tax
brain,
people
that
have gotten
means
rid of the
we are
school
saying that
nurse.
America is as bad as
Yeah,
the
school
Nazis.
nurse. Wonder why they did that, right in the midst of
of course,
a measles
that's
how they
outbreak.
do it, and others mumps too.
Any criticism?
Anyway,
is
so
a
very few
treasonous
schools have school
act.
nurses anymore, and for a kid to,
Which is the
get
exact
a
opposite of
Band-Aid
what the
put on their
founders
knee when
founded
they
this
skin their
nation
knee,
as.
they got to be taken out of class. They got to get the parent
That's
out of
why I
work.
say
The
they
parents
don't
got to
love
come
America,
get them,
and
pick
one
them
of
up,
the thing-
take
and
them to
one
the
of the things
doctor,
they hate
sit around
more
with the
than
doctor,
America are
etc.,
Americans.
etc.,
They cannot
etc. And the
stand
kid
their
suffers by
neighbors.
not being in class. Oh, I don't know. I suppose if we're
So,
all at the
since
the
the
bingo
conservatives that
clutch,
push
for more privatization,
Maybe people are friendly, maybe.
Until they find out who
you
some
are.
people have taken them up on it.
Then they wonder.
And
That's
one
the baby eater.
Of those
He
is a
seems so
group
nice.
called La Clinica.
Yeah, well, I'm
Not
not
a
a
baby
baby
eater.
eater.
Neither are
I think
they.
by Dana, the fact
So,
that it has a
sort of like a
Spanish flavor.
Well,
to their
how,
name,
how do
that's
you
really
argue
what
with people that
is what
deny that
riles up
the
the
Hitler
MAGA
did the shit?
reptilian brain?
They don't
Did
want
you
their
say
kids,
something other
as
than
I was
English?
told. This fellow and millions
Is there
more
some Hispanic
conservatives are
involved in
suspicious
this?
of what's
I
being
think that's
taught in our
really what
schools.
triggers.
Well, damn right, you're suspicious. The
Half-truths,
hypothalamus in these. Misinformation,
Do they even
and
have one?
fear mongering
I don't
will
know.
do that.
It's
to
reptilian,
you.
nonetheless.
Anyway, And I know that's the wrong
That's not
thing to say to
not our
people who are
neighbors.
in denial because they're
Lots of
addicts.
aliens and lizards
You
from
can't
outer
tell an
space
addict
that
like,
are
our
our
reason
neighbors.
you're an addict is because
There's
you're
no other
prone to
explanation for
addiction,
their
you
behavior.
stupid addict. But that's another story.
You don't
for
get
another
anywhere
time,
with that.
isn't it? But I got to tell you, sometimes I just get
In fact,
fed
I think
up and
many
just
science
wanna say,
fiction
you're an
writers have
addict.
already
written about it, so we don't need to go into it, do we? You better
Wake
anyway.
F up, but they can't. They
So
can't go
La
woke.
Clinica has, because they've been told if they
Partnered
go woke
with quite a few
then they can't be
schools
an
in
addict
the
anymore. State.
The addiction
And what
is
they
that
do is
strong.
that they have been setting up mobile labs.
Is tough
where they
love
come at certain
needed in
times,
this situation?
during the
I
week?
would think
and
so.
They'd
And
have
I
an
hated
on-site
tough
clinic
love.
with doctors and nurses, and what they would do
An
is
intervention.
do
What does that take?
I don't know. Physicals,
According to this
sports
guy,
exams.
is the
for,
Democrats
you know,
rounding
football
everybody
and
up.
soccer.
What
Those
does
are
he
all
mean? He doesn't
quite
mean
important
FDR
endeavors. Rounding up the Japanese, Jackson rounding up Native Americans, etc., etc., etc. What he means is the January 6 hostages. Well, as I told this fellow and others who may be listening in, there's millions more of us who, are kind of fed up with your suspicions. Okay. And for that, I'm deemed hostile. I'm not the one that, brought up how millions of you are going to, stomp all over us because you can't get your way again. But you'd think it was like next door. I keep telling these people, hey, stop posting this political bullshit. Next door is next door, not here. They continue to do it. And because they continue to do it, I have to respond, and we all have to. And fortunately, there's quite a few people in town who are fed up as well. If you want to post all this drivel and propaganda, you're going to get called out on it. And some people who don't know what the hell is going on, but because it's presented in such a neighborly way, hey neighbors, do you know what's happening at your public schools? What? What, are they going to have like a pet bunny sale for Easter? No. They're going to turn your kids into furries for Easter. Oh no, they're going to turn our kids in as a grandparent. That's a red flag. I hear this stuff. And I try to allay the concerns of these grandparents. Your grandkids are not getting their sex changed at school. That's a lie. You're so hostile. Really? Some people are hostile and others are hostile. You can take your piano down to the creek. Bless their heart. Okay, what do we have in store for you here in the Bistro Cafe as we begin this fabulous Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays? Yes, indeed, we are going to give you that rundown at the top. Yes, of course, in the Bistro Cafe as we begin. Trump's comments on Gorka's show is anti-Semitic garbage. Sometimes I gotta have Morning Joe, just to lay it down for us, because I kind of have been avoiding them. Anyway, on the rest of the menu, hey, voters in MAGA Shasta County in California, are rejecting MAGA politics. They're fed up. We all are, and there's millions more of us too. You poked the sleeping giant, and now we're stirring. A Portland, Oregon nonprofit has been given a nod of approval on its work to revitalize a historically black neighborhood that's been targeted by decades of racist development policies. And that's going to get these MAGA types really mad. Black people are being acknowledged? Oh, and they're calling it racist. Oh. That's what they do. And 6 former Mississippi law officers could be sentenced to decades behind bars for the torture of 2 black men. And that's going to get people upset. And I don't know, maybe Trump will want to pardon them too. They're hostages. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Croatia's top court ruled that the president cannot run in the parliamentary election unless he resigns from his current position immediately. And Australian authorities have issued legal notices to Google, Meta, Shitter, WhatsApp, Telegram, and Reddit over cyber extremism threats. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Since we had such a long intro, we will forego the usuals that we usually go to at this time and tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And it is by Haley Branson Potts and Jessica Garrison from the Los Angeles Times. Shasta County voters have booted from office a key figure in the county's hard right shift, even as the fate of a second far-right crusader on the powerful Board of Supervisors still hangs in the balance. Patrick Jones, a former chair of the 5-member board, was soundly defeated in the Super Tuesday election, according to results released by the county registrar on Friday afternoon. With 98% of the vote counted, Jones' opponent, Matt Plummer, a nonprofit advisor, was winning outright with nearly 60% of the vote. It was a stunning turn for Jones, a gun store manager who, in his one term in office, has emerged as a leading voice in an ultra-conservative insurgence that transformed this largely rural Northern California county into a national symbol of hard-right governance and election denialism. That's a nice way of putting it. In recent months, Jones led the conspiracy-laden charge to dump Dominion voting machines and return the county to hand-counting its ballots. He helped push through a county resolution pledging fealty to the Second Amendment, bow down to this gun or die, and a measure to allow concealed weapons in local government buildings in defiance of state law. More broadly, he worked with militia members and secessionists on campaign efforts that dramatically reshaped governments in a county long run by mainstream Republicans. In another closely watched primary race, Jones' political ally, Supervisor Kevin Cry, was surviving a recall election by just 46 votes. Cry made headlines last year when he enlisted support for nixing Dominion machines from Mike Lindell, the MyPillow chief executive and pro-Trump election denier.
Dansez maintenant sous l'été, les pieds nus dans le sable. Dansez maintenant et jetez vos ennuis dans les vagues qui dansent, balancent
Absolutely. Oregon Public Broadcasting brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. State and federal leaders are casting a vote of confidence in a Portland nonprofit working to revitalize a historically black neighborhood that's been targeted by decades of racist development policies. The Albina Vision Trust helped the Oregon Department of Transportation win $450 million in federal funding to advance an Interstate 5 expansion project. The trust wants to build covers over the patch of highway running through north and northeast Portland, where the neighborhood along the east side of the Willamette River was decimated for construction of I-5 in the 1950s and the 1960s. The Portland Bureau of Transportation also garnered $38 million in federal funding for projects in the nearby Broadway-Wheatler corridor. This major federal investment is going to pave the way for a bright future for Northeast Portland and our entire city, Senator Ron Wyden said during a news conference at the Albina Vision Trust office near the Moda Center. And most important, it is great to see that the east side of Portland is finally getting some well-deserved recognition. Wyden called past decisions to tear down black-owned homes and businesses for the construction of I-5 shameful, saying it led to a loss of generational wealth for Portland's black community. Goldberg of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. 6 former Mississippi law enforcement officers who pleaded guilty to a long list of state and federal charges for torturing 2 black men will be sentenced by a federal judge starting today. U.S. District Judge Tom Lee will sentence 2 defendants each day on Tuesday today, and then Wednesday and Thursday after twice delaying the proceedings. Each faces the potential of decades behind bars. The former law officers admitted in August to subjecting Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker to numerous acts of racially motivated violent torture. Wait a second. The victims don't get 3 names. It's the perps. Regardless, in a January 2023 episode, the group of 6 burst into a Rankin County home without a warrant and assaulted Jenkins and Parker with stun guns, a sex toy, and other objects. The terror began on January 24th of 2023 with a racist call for extrajudicial violence. A white person phoned Rankin County Deputy Brett McAlpin and complained that 2 black men were staying with a white woman at a house in Braxton, Mississippi. McAlpin told Deputy Christian Dedman, who texted a group of white deputies so willing to use excessive force, they called themselves the Goon Squad. And I will not go into a description that's been printed here of what they did, because it's really not appropriate for morning consumption. Trust me, you can read the article on your own at the links provided. Well, let us now go to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Those are the haunting melodies of baleen whales reverberating through the ocean waves. Many people across the globe are familiar with the 1970 album Songs of the Humpback Whale, produced by biologist Roger Payne. While I was just a little bit too young to have caught its release, I remember seeing the CD for sale at Walmart alongside other calming tracks for meditation. You could press a button to get a preview of each album, and all of a sudden, as you stood on the concrete floors in front of a display of posters, the eerie songs of the humpback would fill your ears. Now, scientists believe they have discovered how humpbacks and other baleen whales produce these unique sounds. Their findings, published online last month, may also explain why noise pollution from ships hinders the whale's ability to communicate. Hi, I'm Devin Farmelo, and you're listening to Science Quickly. Even after Songs of the Humpback Whale popularized whale songs and increased public awareness of the animal's decline, they remained an enigma.
But we know very little of them, and one of the reasons is because if they beach or strand on beaches, then it's really hard to get there on time. The tissues they have decompose incredibly fast, and whales, as you know, might know, they also have been known to explode on the beach. So you have to get there really fast in order to study physiology.
That's Cohen Ellemans, a professor of bioacoustics at the University of Southern Denmark. He is particularly interested in how animals make sounds and how their brains control it. Since it is difficult to study whale physiology, it took Cohen and his colleagues a while to find suitable specimens. When they got access to 3 stranded baleen whales, including 2 located close to their lab in Denmark, it led them to a breakthrough. First, a 6-month-old sei whale died in a nearby fjord in 2018, likely because of emaciation. Then, almost a year later, a juvenile female humpback got tangled in a fishing net and drowned at the northern tip of the country.
Now, we were lucky in that sense that 2 animals stranded very close to the lab here in a harbor where we could have very quick access. So I think one of the big breakthroughs was that we actually could get fresh tissue, and then we could actually study their physiology in a way that has not been done before.
With this new opportunity to examine baleen whale physiology, Cohen and his colleagues were able to solve the more than 50-year mystery of the creature's melodies. The human voice box, or larynx, makes sound when air passes over our vocal folds. The larynx of baleen whales, however, needs to accommodate for living underwater. The roughly half-meter-long voice box creates sound when a fatty wedge-shaped cushion vibrates and presses on the larynx while air passes through. In the lab, Cohen and his colleagues attached the preserved voice boxes of the dead whales to a series of pipes, blowing air into the larynxes to make them sing. While the songs weren't as beautiful as those heard in the sea, the scientists were able to replicate the sounds of these enigmatic creatures. Cohen and his colleagues also created digital models to help them fully understand the impact of muscle movements on whale vocalizations, including how they affect frequency.
And now we figured out that their voice box actually still can make sound, but it does so in a very unique way. It doesn't have vocal folds like we have, but it has a new structure that's sort of a cushion with muscle in it. And when they press a rigid structure, like a hard structure against that and blow air past it, they can still make sound underwater.
This unique way of producing sound hasn't been observed in any other animal species. It was a necessary evolutionary change that happened over the course of tens of millions of years, sometime after whales' ancestors returned to the sea following a stint as terrestrial animals. Their voice box adapted to this new environment and gave them a way to communicate underwater, until humans came along and started making a ruckus.
But that system also actually limits what kind of frequencies they can make and also where they can make it. So we can rather convincingly show now that they can only make this from the surface to about 100 meters deep, because then they simply run out of air.
Typically, baleen whales sing to one another under the ocean's surface to communicate about swimming destinations, potential dangers, food locations, and other important information. Boats, however, can disrupt this chatter.
So that frequency band and also the depth of vocalizations where these animals make their vocalizations sadly perfectly overlaps where we make a lot of boating noise. So one of the consequences is that these animals have a really cool way to make sound, but they cannot voluntarily say like, oh, today I'm going to sing a bit higher, because they're just physiologically constrained. And they can also not sing deeper. So they are stuck in this frequency band and depth band where we make most noise.
Have you ever tried to have a conversation next to rushing traffic? Noise can disrupt human communication too, but we have many other ways of giving and receiving information, such as sight. Whales do not have that luxury.
They use sound for almost all their communication, because on the water you cannot see anything. They use sound to find each other, to coordinate movement and migration. So it's really important for them.
Decades after whale songs first played on record players across the world, inspiring a new wave of conservation, the hidden anatomy behind these melodies has been brought to the surface. Whale songs are now ubiquitous. They can be played in your living room, your car, even in an aisle of a Midwestern Walmart. But whales do not live on the land anymore. They live in an increasingly noisy ocean, one that is drowning out their songs. For Science Quickly, this is Devin Farmelo. Science Quickly is produced by Jeff Delvicio, Rachel Feltman, and Kelso Harper, and edited by Timmy Broderick, Ella Fetter, and Alexa Lim. Music is by Dominic Smith. Don't forget to subscribe to Science Quickly wherever you get your podcasts. For more in-depth science news and features, go to scientificamerican.com. And if you like the show, give us a rating or review.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. And you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. Former New Hampshire Secretary of State Bill Gardner famously quipped, "You can't hack a pencil." Perhaps, but that mindset has set the Granite State decades behind in its election technology. Now there's another proposal for a state election information portal to finally offer online voter registration. Voting Rights Lab reports that New Hampshire is only one of 7 states which does not allow its citizens to register online. HB 463 passed the New Hampshire House January 3rd and will likely pass the Senate. Funding for the portal passed the Senate last week in a voice vote and will be heard shortly in the House Finance Committee. New Hampshire's portal would be more of a secure transit system. Citizens could securely send identity, residency, and citizenship documents to the Secretary of State's office via the portal, and town and city election officials would download and review the registrations. Existing voters would also be able to make registration changes or to request an absentee ballot. Such a system would allow the elderly, disabled, shift workers, and others to register outside of town hall hours, often limited in New Hampshire's rural communities. Studies of states using online voter registration, or OVR, found it was secure, lowered cost, lightened the burden for election workers, increased voter satisfaction, and reduced barriers to voting. We have links to the bills and OVR data at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, a small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. It always has, and it always will. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 45 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the mid-70s, could be in the upper 70s here at the mothership. Lots of sunshine today with winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, a bit breezier than what we've had in previous days. Partly cloudy skies overnight with lows in the low to mid-40s, winds light and variable, and then partly cloudy skies during the morning tomorrow. Then will become overcast in the afternoon with quite a drop in temperatures. We're expecting highs only in the low to mid-60s, winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and it is bringing with it quite a bit of rain beginning the middle to late Thursday, and then continuing, looks like pretty much all through the weekend and next week. Looks like pollen is rated as none here in our little town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 24 parts per million, though that daytime UV index is moderate at level 3, so do take care. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.09 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 100%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 55 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 65 and partly cloudy. Rome is 67 degrees and sunny. Kabul is 48 and clear. Hong Kong is 55 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 47 degrees and clear. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 60 degrees and cloudy. San Francisco, California is 52 and mostly cloudy. Chicago, Illinois is 40 degrees, partly cloudy with wind and a gale warning. That's some wind. And New York is 41 degrees Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy with a small craft advisory. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Croatia's president cannot run for prime minister, take part in the upcoming parliamentary election, or campaign in favor of an opposition party unless he resigns immediately from his current post, according to a ruling from the country's top court. President Zoran Milanovic blasted the Constitutional Court decision, saying they did it in a gangster way. I will eventually be prime minister, but I will not tell that gang how, he told reporters. Milanovic on Friday called a parliamentary election for April 17th, but hours later announced that he would run for Croatia's next prime minister on the list of the opposition Social Democratic Party. The surprise announcement has triggered a deep political crisis in the European Union and NATO member country, with the state's constitutional court called in to give its opinion on Milanovic's move to run in the parliamentary election. If he wants to take part in a political campaign, he must submit his resignation immediately to the president of the Constitutional Court. Presiding Judge Miroslav Separovic said at a news conference. The president and the SDP party are obliged to act in accordance with this warning and stop violating the Constitution, he said, adding that the president is a nonpartisan figure, according to the Constitution, and as such, Milanovic is not allowed to take part in an election or campaign in favor of one political party or another. The ballot next month will pit the ruling conservative Croatian Democratic Union against the SDP-led group of centrist and left-leaning parties, which have announced that they will run as an alliance. After announcing his bid to become Croatia's new prime minister, Milanovic immediately started an election campaign on behalf of the Social Democratic Party, but Constitutional Court judges ruled on Monday, yesterday, that the move was unconstitutional. Milanovic intended to challenge the current conservative Prime Minister Plenković and his ruling Croatian Democratic Union, known by its Croatian initials as the HDZ, which he has accused of rampant corruption. The two have been involved in continuous bickering over a number of issues. Of the Associated Press World Desk brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Australia's online safety regulator has put social media giants on notice, requiring them to explain what they are doing to protect people from violent extremists and terrorists. The country's e-safety regulator announced that it had issued legal notices to Google, Meta, X, which we know as Shitter, WhatsApp, Telegram, and Reddit, requiring each company to report on steps they are taking to protect Australian users of their platforms from extremist material online. Accessing violent and extremist content on social media has been blamed for the radicalization of the perpetrator of the 2019 Christchurch mosque shooting, which killed 51 people, and also a gunman who murdered 10 black Americans at Buffalo in New York in 2022. Both shooters also live streamed parts of their attack online. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Appétit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.